regardless actually of any problem that the human body experiences. It's all related to mineral deficiency, it turns out.
Hello and welcome to the Fitness Doctor Coaching Show. And today we have a presentation planned especially for our VIPs. In fact, we did a survey of some of our VIPs and we found out some of the areas that they want the most help on when it comes to nutrition and certain elements of nutrition that can most benefit these areas. When we surveyed our VIPs and we looked into this research, we found that 53% of our VIPs have some trouble with sleeping. We found that when it comes to gaining muscle mass, 68% felt they had difficulty with gaining muscle mass. And when it comes to memory, also 53% of our VIPs surveyed, we found have some issues with memory. So of course, my objective is to help all of our VIPs, all of our audience members, but especially our VIP family members, achieve the very best quality of life possible. And that is what we have planned for today. Let me share further with you. When it comes to issues such as poor sleep or even early death, lack of energy, feeling nauseous, tingling in hands and feet, irregular heartbeats, moodiness, high blood pressure, brittle nails, heart attacks, feeling confused or spacey, flabby, loose skin, cold hands and feet, thyroid issues, hair thinning, bone fractures, osteopenia and osteoporosis, impaired vision, headache and migraines, and fertility issues. All of these things can have to do with what we're talking about today. Now, none of this is medical advice, and you should always consult your doctor first. So this should not stand in the place of medical advice. But what we have found, and I have a very intelligent chemical engineer with me today, who is an elite specialist in minerals. And this gentleman, he became known by me because I have many doctor friends and some of my entrepreneur friends who, hey, this guy, Barton Scott, has this amazing formula and it's this amazing nanoparticle that has amazing absorption. And every single person that I've talked to that has taken this product has said that their sleep greatly benefited from it. So this is not a sales presentation. This is not what this episode is about. But that's the way he came to me, is learning about this product that he created into a very specific and special formula. So I said, hey, Barton, you need to come and connect with our VIPs and our audience and share all about how the body works and why minerals are such an important thing. Now, I'm sure you've heard of vitamins and minerals before, and proteins, carbohydrates, and fatty acids, and all these things. But when you think about all those things, probably minerals is probably lower on the list when you think about your knowledge and background and how certain you are that you're having a sufficient enough of these key essential nutrients. These are nutrients that your body needs essentially from your diet. And when it doesn't get them, all of these things that I just shared can be the negative symptom and consequence of that. So please help me welcome Barton. And Barton, to get us started, please share with us, how did you become an expert in the subject, and share a little bit with me about your background?
Hey guys, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. My name is Barton Scott. I started a great company called Upgraded Formulas that I'm incredibly proud of because of what we've been able to do for people. We've been able to get people off of things like sleeping medication in as little as a month. Some of the smartest people in the world in the supplement space that, just like me, engineer supplements for many companies, and yet could not find their own solutions. I was able to get some like fitness pros off of thyroid medications. Was able to get other people that are nutritionists themselves off of SSRIs, and actually just got a beautiful story yesterday that we might have time to share about SSRIs and what a life-changing difference. This person was actually having suicidal rumination and able to just absolutely change their life path. And so,
Martin, can I interrupt you just for
yeah.
1 second? Not everybody knows what SSRI is. Can you tell us what that
sure. Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So these are just mood altering drugs. So for people that feel, a sense of malaise or depression, being able to up their base level of happiness really is what those are doing. And so incredible. Also, bear with me. I just moved into a new office. So yeah, you can see a bunch of books in the background. And, the thing I wanted to mention to you guys today as we kick this presentation off is, why did I choose minerals, right? there's a lot of things that if I wanted a company in the health space, I could have done. And why the health space? How did I end up here? So I want to give you a brief background so you understand why this is so meaningful to me and why I saw such an important need out there in the world. And so it goes all the way back to me, when I woke up one Sunday afternoon. I woke up, I was 24 at the time, and I could tell something was wrong immediately. And initially, I thought something was physically wrong with me. And then another breath or two later, I just about hit my knees because somehow my intuition, I've only had this happen a couple times in my life, gave me the clarity that it was a parent and it was my mother. And we were very close as a family. She was 67 at the time. And for 3 or 4 years, I'd been helping her with her health more and more as her unofficial nutritionist. And yes, she had some doctors. No, they weren't able to really help her much. Um, and yes, they did give some absolute incorrect recommendations. Um, I I find that a lot of doctors, unfortunately, today, unless they've gone through additional training beyond medical school, don't know enough. They usually take 1 to 2 hours, credit hours, or 1 to 4 hours of actual, and this is like even Harvard, um, of actual nutrition, and yet they're putting on the white coat and saying you should take this or you shouldn't take this or don't worry about that test, not even having experience with it, but they're very very persuasive given their precision. And this is sort of the exact spot we found ourselves in. I had gone through this myself. I even by this time I had a bunch of health issues because I'd been a really good athlete in a number of sports, including wrestling, where I learned nutrition because we had to make weight for every tournament and every match. And so from doing that and thinking about diet from the time I was 8 to 24, I learned a lot. And along the way, I did one of the hardest degrees out there, which is chemical engineering, where you basically get, you take all the hardest math, hardest physics, the hardest chemistry, and then you put it all together and you do something called chemical engineering, where you actually have to remember and combine all of that stuff to make physical, real world things that the world depends on for example, energy or pharmaceuticals or things like that. So I was, going to work for unfortunately a big major oil company. Is the only place I could get a job. So I was working for Shell, and of course, not liking it, and trying to help my mother with her problems, trying to get over my own health problems. And we found a test. We found a test that was finally showing us what we needed to do, and we'll talk briefly about that later in this call, even if it's not the focus. And because I want to give you a taste of it, it's just so critical. And this test really changed the course of my life because it showed us what was actionable, really affordable, and it showed us what was actionable, what we could actually do. Because I don't know if any of you have had this experience, but often I've gotten a test and I'm searching for something to improve. That's the reason why you're there doing the diagnostic test in the first place, right? It seems kind of counterintuitive for some people that haven't done a lot of testing, but you realize I actually want to find something quote unquote wrong so I can improve it and then feel better, right? So I want you to tell me something that I can improve. That's the growth learner mindset. And the whole no news is good news. It flies out the window when we're looking at testing. So I finally found this hair test just through pure luck. A friend of mine that was going through a cancer treatment, and I found this great practitioner that understood hair analysis. And and we can talk later about why is hair so much different than blood, and why is it better when you're looking at deficiency specifically, which turns out are the building blocks of things like hormones and everything else. And so there was finally like light at the end of the tunnel. So when I get this call, I wake up, I'm in Austin, Texas. I get in my car, I drive back because sure enough, I check my phone, missed calls from both sisters. And I just had that deep, if you've ever had that deep sinking feeling in your chest where you're like, oh my God, something is terribly wrong. Sure enough, I this was out of the blue too. Like my mother was supposed to be on her way to see one of my sisters, and she had an aneurysm and she fainted. She passed out in the bathroom and never woke up. So they rushed her to the hospital, and that's where I got the call. So Sunday afternoon, I'm driving with a packed car back to Louisiana, and feeling sort of like I've let her down, really. For some reason, like I wasn't there, which doesn't really make logical sense, because I was living out of state, and doing what I had to do to get my own life going, and so I want to place this there because where we are there, I realized only about 5 years after that the reason I started this company was actually hugely in part of her and in part of people just like yourselves that probably are seeing some things go off the track, and you're thinking, ah, how bad can it be? But what I've learned from my one of my friends, who's one of the top longevity doctors in the space, that also uses our testing now and our products, by the way. Um, Brilliant guy. He invented a lot of surgical equipment in the 80s in Dallas, started entire hospital branches. What Jeff pointed out to me is, he said, aging, and he's 72 and he's in better shape than almost anyone I know. He said, aging is nonlinear. So you really do start to fall off a cliff. So the difference of something going wrong at 35 versus 65 is pretty significant if it's not corrected very quickly. And and so what we're doing here with Robbie and Patricia and team at the Fitness Doctor, um, Michelle, Naomi, the whole crew is, and I have Victor from my team here too, is helping you understand something that I wish I would have understood, that probably, and I really do believe this, I think both of my parents would be alive today. And there's a lot of wisdom that is lost when really brilliant people that are seniors, but young seniors, die young. And and there's also just a lot of wellness and vitality that we could be accessing, and we often don't realize how good we could feel because the light bulb sort of dims slowly. You know what I mean? So what I realized in coming out of this, emerging from this painful place, was that the testing was helping us. It was telling us what we needed to do. You know what wasn't working though? What wasn't working was the supplements and the diet. And so what I realized along the way, my good friend Dr. Pompa said, as quoted another doctor friend of his, that said, a good diet will never get you well. Actually, it will never get you to a place of optimum health and well-being. It will help mitigate some of the effects, obviously, and we should all strive to eat as good of a diet as we should, including organic and etc. Diet variation, all sorts of things that I know you guys are talking about already. But the thing below that, what he's really saying is that the micronutrients of the food you're eating, the fat, the protein, the carbs, all of that together it's made up of elements. It's made up of, if you guys remember, the periodic table in high school that might have given some of you, a little bit of trauma or stress when you saw, oh, all these numbers, I have to remember all this. It's kind of, hopefully it wasn't too scary. That is the building blocks of the entire planet. It's everything from, from your cell phone to, to everything you've eaten or touched. And so when we get that right by testing it, and when we focus it, on things like memory, in this case, I know a lot of you talked about memory. I know a lot of you talked about muscle mass and bone health, and a lot of you talked about blood sugar, muscle gain. I mean, regardless, actually, of any problem that the human body experiences, it's all related to mineral deficiency. It turns out that entire list that Robbie ran us through at the beginning of this call actually is all this one topic. And so, which also includes the sort of negative or bad guys, which is the heavy metals. So we look at that too. And so on the mineral side, what I realized was, what was it? And it took me about 3.5 years from that point, even after studying nutrition for years and years, starting at 12 or 13, that thanks to, the good sport of wrestling and having to make weight and all of these different things. But, realizing that, of course, diet played a role in energy and focus and blood sugar and weight gain and muscle gain and everything. But if we could get the actual supplements that we're taking that we knew we needed, thanks to a good test, to absorb better, that would be huge. Absolutely huge. It would be a whole new life, a longer life, a better life, more fulfilled life, a more resourced life. On the relationship side, for example, how many arguments happen late at night when people are tired? The main thing is not that it's late at night, it's that people are tired. People are tired because they're low in energy. They're low in energy because, again, it comes back to being low in elements. They're low in magnesium. Their body has not restored. Their adrenals are low. Their thyroid's low. Their brain probably has a lot of buildup of just from working all day. And so the body needs to go through and clean itself, and it needs a lot of energy to do that. So the body's essentially a battery. And when we get elements to absorb really well, everything changes. And so that's really what I'd like to talk to you today.
You mentioned testing, and you mentioned like blood panels being great for some things, and hair analysis being better. Without turning the presentation into that,
Yeah.
what's your stance? Like, what's better in terms of a panel on the blood versus hair?
Right. So definitely hair, because it's tissue. when it comes to deficiencies and everything we're talking about today. And the reason why is blood is really you on your best behavior. It's like, when you straighten everything up, a lot of people talk about, oh, I'm sure you've heard someone say this, or maybe you've had the thought before, like, yeah, I've got some blood work Monday, so I'm going to, eat my best or whatever. That's not actually what you want, right? And because it's not representative of your lifestyle and what you're doing. So yes, it's a snapshot, and I'm not saying it can't be helpful. This is not a war against blood testing at all, at all. But what it is it's an accurate understanding of what's missing and why it can be and often is misleading when it comes to deficiencies. So that's the clear point that we're making right here.
So hair analysis can give you a really nice long-term picture because it's a buildup over a very sustained period of time. It's like what's really happening over a longer, more sustained period of time versus just a snapshot. Because there's a lot of things on a blood panel that are snapshot. There's some things that are longer, right? Like an A1C that might be 90 to 120 days, last 90 to 120 days, whereas some things are like your blood sugar level, for example. That's like right now.
It's right now. Yeah, certainly. There's a lot to look at and think about there with blood testing. But yes, it's you on your best behavior. It's also, depending on what you're looking at, it can show you so much about your thyroid, your adrenals, your metabolism, and what's really important for people to, for each one of you to understand is that when you're looking at hair, you're actually sampling 1,000 times more data. So you're sampling this much versus just that much. So it's like polling 1,000 people and getting a response, or 10,000 versus 1,000, versus 1,000 versus one. And that's really what you're doing. Part of the reason why it's a snapshot with blood. But what I mean with blood being you is you and your best behavior. What I realized, and this is so fascinating to me, and I think you'll find it interesting as well. I realized the best way to explain this is to think of it in money terms, and blood would be your checking account. Now, with any of you, could I know your total financial picture if I just looked at your checking account? The answer, of course, is no. But beyond that, what's even more interesting is how the body works as a money example. And the way it works, and this whole thing could be a book by itself, is, and it'll be in something I put out later this year. The way it works is the body, when it's under stress and under times of low nutrients, it actually will pull from your tissue, i.e. hair, skin, and then later bone. And it'll move it from the savings account, which is tissue, into the checking account. So as fascinating as that is, the other thing is that what we really would never want to have happen financially, or in this case, health-wise, we'd never want to move from bone marrow to blood. And yet that is exactly how the body buffers pH. And you know why it does it that way, Robbie, is what's so fascinating. We might have talked about this offline before, but just to reiterate for you here listening, the way that works, the way that's so fascinating is the body knows that if your pH drops just a little bit, just even a little bit, organs begin to shut down. And rightly so, the body knows that it needs to do anything to prevent that. So it thinks as short term as it has to. And so it goes, all right, 10 years down the road, if we continue to do what we're doing right now, that could lead to osteoporosis or osteopenia for the person. And because you're pulling magnesium or your calcium or et cetera from the bone, right? But what's more important, that down the road or right now, to get you into a state of good pH in your blood, which is circulating and is that, that phrase lifeblood, nurturing the organs. So now with this really full understanding, I'm glad we took a moment and really dove in on this. I'm sure you can understand why optimizing minerals in the tissue is really important, because the body does store nutrients in your tissue, and that could be your skin, your hair is a example of, and it's one of the signs of youth, right? If someone has, so many examples, right? But fingernails also, all these different signs are outwardly our skin, it's how we're doing health-wise. And so the good news is wherever you are right now, you can improve that, wherever you are. And if you shave your head, we do underarm, we do pubic, I've sent in beard hair before. So there's plenty of options. But the mineral side of things becomes really, really important when you understand this. this sort of outline I just gave between blood and hair and how the body actually works. So yeah, that's I can pause there, but what I figured out ultimately was this absorption graphic, and we can show that in the slides. But essentially, your cells are, let's say, this size, right? And that was 10,000 nanometers. And so the way the body works, again, by studying that, is it breaks everything down, the food you just ate, in other words, into a small enough place to get absorbed into the bloodstream. What happens, right, for that to work? Well, what the body's actually doing is breaking the particles down small enough to get into the red blood cells, and that's incredible. That's absolutely, it's amazing how efficient and effective the machine is, that the body is, right? Because meanwhile, most of us have no knowledge of how this works, and yet it's working for us all the time in every meal we eat. And yet most of us have gut dysfunction, and therefore we're unable to easily replenish those nutrient levels that we see and those deficiency levels that we see in a good test like a hair analysis. One that, for example, we use often. And so the thing there became, all right, this was my guiding question, how do I get things to absorb without digestion, or to mimic this final state of digestion? The final state of digestion. So what does that mean? Let's say there's 10 steps in the digestive process. There's really probably more like 150. But let's say there's 10 or 150 out of 150, that those nutrients go into the bloodstream because the particle size of those foods, those fruits, vegetables, meats, proteins, whatever it is, they're going into the bloodstream at that point, and then it's circulating throughout the blood, or in the blood throughout the body, and then it's nourishing the body, right? Check, great. And yes, there's problems with the soil deficiency and all these different things too, right? So I realized, okay, this is a bigger problem than I thought, because now the body is having to defend against toxins, which nutrients help you defend against toxins as they also give you energy. And then the soil is very depleted. And then on top of that, we have leaky gut, thanks to, quote unquote, modern lifestyle, where we're, often doing, maybe more, we're not prioritizing, saying yes to too much, whatever it is, not resting enough. And we have so many environmental toxins to deal with and defend against. So the solution really became, let's get the nutrients to absorb without digestion. And so luckily our product line today, all of our mineral products absorb without digestion. If it's a capsule, obviously you digest the capsule, which is incredibly easy. Anyone can do that. And then it goes into the bloodstream, or there's liquids that you can just add to, whatever your drink is in the morning and or evening or lunchtime, depending on what dose you need for the day. All right, so what we're talking about here, guys, is to show you visually what we're talking about is mineral uptake and how it works in the body. And so this is the system I wanted to show you. So the size of your red blood cells are a certain size. Just remember this number, 10,000. And then the size of the minerals I realized we're trying, and supplements in general that we're testing, they're about 5 to 8 times larger. So 50,000 or 80,000, that's 5 to 8 times larger, right? So what I realized was there was a thing as too small, and there was a thing certainly as too big. And for things to be small enough to get into the red blood cell, but also stable enough. So if you notice, what we ultimately landed on was something between 1 and 10 nanometers. And so this is something you can see under very fancy, very expensive microscopes. And so we check every batch for this. We look at third-party testing, and it's because of this, a lot of people will ask us, especially for our magnesium supplements, they'll say, okay, so this is amazing. What form of magnesium is it? And I get it. Like, we've all been trained again and again. Even today, I saw a post from a friend that knows a lot, and for other supplement companies, other products out there in the market, that there's truth to that. Where the thing is the body, what I want all of us to understand is the body doesn't ask for a certain form of magnesium or a certain form of chromium when it gets it from food, which is, the last time I checked, how we evolved, right? So by understanding how we evolved and matching a process, using background in chemical engineering and understanding how process works, such that I could go and say, all right, this is the sort of process we need to be able to achieve this sort of outcome. It took years and years of work, obviously, but that was the right thinking, the right way to go about it, versus just saying, all right, let's build a new car, so to speak, and we're just going to grab parts off the shelf, which is really what we're doing when we say, oh, magnesium, I don't know, let's say tartrate and glycinate and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And this one does this thing and this one does that thing, and let's just put them all together. The absorption on that is like less than 30%. So it's not enough to reverse the deficiencies that we're seeing on the chart. And the problem with that, you might be going, well, how big of a deal is that? Well, it's a huge deal. It's a life-threatening deal, actually, in some cases, depending on the person and where they are, because it's very simple. If you don't reverse the deficiency, what do you think happens to the problem? The problem stays or gets worse, right? Exactly. So I always say, the delivery system, and there's other companies now, they're using the word nano. I cannot speak to their process or anything like that. Ours is unique. I don't know like what truth there is behind theirs, how they're doing it. I just know it must be different than the way we do it. We've done clinical trials on 2 of our products. And so the delivery system really is greater than the form. That's like one of the hallmark takeaways that I hope you'll not only understand for yourself, but be able to teach other people. So to recap, what's different? Again, the delivery system is mimicking food, which is how our bodies have evolved, right? It's how our bodies evolved. That's how we've got to do it. We have to mimic nature. I always say, I said this to Robbie before, but a great insight that I've had is that to the extent that we deviate from our evolution, we suffer, period, right? And so on the flip side, when we can really listen, and I believe all the success in life comes from some form of listening, when we listen closely to what needs to be said, by the body, by what is being said, we can then adapt and make the right choices. So these are some of the things that Robbie went over. Some of my favorites out there that I know a lot of people are dealing with these days: thyroid issues, fertility issues, headaches, even vision issues. Outwardly, we talked about brittle nails, skin, hair, all being signs of deficiency, because the body is going, hey, that's extra stuff. We'll take care of that later, right? And then, if you're not healing wounds easily, that's another sign. If you see a scratch and that scratch doesn't heal, that's a problem. So this was our survey that we talked about a bit already. Robbie introduced us with that. So memory, sleep, and muscle mass being 3 top issues. So, we're going to address those in these next couple of slides, if that's good with you guys. All right, so blood sugar. Victor put a couple of these together. A lot of these are pulled from things a lot of the people that we work with also say too. And so, really just to give you a high level of this is all of these things are reversible. So if you're noticing that you're having blood sugar issues, you're noticing that you're going gray faster, or just you seem to be aging faster, yes, it's quote unquote stress management, and yes, some of that is just breath work, meditation, working out, actually taking care of this body that I know a lot of you are doing really well with this work that you're doing with the fitness doctor. And so, but these are just areas of listening, really. Am I checking in, right? And we see, by the way, in each one of these areas, we can see if someone's going gray. Oh, we can see, their zinc to copper balance is off. Maybe they're low in copper. It's a good reason why they're going gray. Maybe they're low in manganese. There are nutrients that we can take that slow that rate of gray, and in some cases can actually bring back the graying of hair, because you see some people that go gray in their early 20s or late 20s, and so that's not normal. And what that is the body running out of nutrient stores. The person is sort of like spending their cash in their savings account and investment account faster than they should be, right? Next couple slides are on one of the root causes that saves so much headache and stress. And if you can get this right, so much falls into place, because it's supporting both memory. It's, believe it or not, supporting muscle gains, and we'll talk about that. It's supporting bone health and blood sugar, all with this one nutrient. And we have many different solutions and products out there. But one thing that, if it's out of place, and like you'll see here, 8 out of 10 Americans are deficient in magnesium. Even if you're taking it, there's a good chance you're deficient. I know I was, and that's part of what triggered this to be the first product that I worked on years and years ago, like 2015. Was I was actually pretty upset, and also just befuddled, confused, anything you can name. I just beside myself, right? Because I had been taking 600 milligrams of different types of magnesium for about a year and a half leading up to this first hair test, and I showed not only low but chronically low. And so, and they said, okay, so I imagine you're not. He had this big booming accent. South African. This guy, great knowledge of hair testing. He said, Barton, you're not remembering your dreams, are you, mate? And I thought, wow, like that. How do you know that? That's one, stressful that you know that, and two, like really interesting. And so luckily, I can tell you, pretty soon thereafter, I was dreaming again. But even my early 20s, regardless of age, I wasn't dreaming, and I was doing a lot of things right. That's the other thing. I wasn't binge drinking on the weekends. Sure, I had a few drinks here and there, especially in my 20s, but I wasn't doing things like incredibly wrong, right? I was eating a good diet. I was working out. Um, I had a lot of good movement skills, and knew how to take pretty good care of my body, and still I was having a bunch of these issues. So just to run through a few of these: fatigue and weakness. Are you
Barton,
tired? Uh-huh.
can I interrupt you for just one second?
Yeah, sure.
Can you share with us what is not remembering your dreams representative of health
Mm.
wise?
Yeah, sure. So it's this topic, this area. It's magnesium deficiency, which leads to a low production of melatonin, the hormone melatonin that we should be producing internally or endogenously. And so when we're not making enough of melatonin, we can look really quickly and check our magnesium levels, and in every single case, you'll see, oh, all right, the person's low in magnesium, and you go, all right, well, that's if you have a product that's going to absorb really well, that's going to help you a lot. Yeah.
And
So
this is representative of the depth of sleep,
yeah, well,
matching dreaming to either REM or deep sleep.
This is representative. So that was just a sort of subset of one of the main issues, and just a really memorable story that I had personally from experiencing signs of magnesium deficiency. And because I want to give you guys as many stories as I can to make this memorable, right? Because I want this to be easy to remember, easy for you to explain to people. And so these are just now what we're looking at in this slide. I definitely won't read all of these, but these are some really common signs. It's one of the quizzes we'll do an intake, or we'll have people fill out. And so, in addition to these, fatigue and weakness, for example, and muscle. I know we're talking about muscle gains, right? That was one of the issues out there, that a lot of people reported, right, Robbie? So the thing that I thought was really interesting, I've noticed it, but then I had a functional nutritionist write in, to me on Facebook, and she said, Barton, her name is Kelly, and she said, hey, I'm 54 now, and I'm so happy that I can actually get multiple workouts in a week consistently for several months now, because what used to happen is I would inevitably have some sort of minor injury that would keep me out of the gym, and I wouldn't heal as fast. But now that I'm sleeping better, I'm actually able to recover. And it's as like minor as a thing, or you would think is like, oh well, I just fixed a magnesium deficiency. Well, it turns out magnesium does over 3,500 things in the body. We used to think in 1950, and a lot of people still quote this, that it does 300 things in the body, which is still a heck of a lot. I mean, zinc does 30 things in the body that we know of. So it's a real master mineral, and you get this right, and your digestive issues improve. And that could be bloating and constipation. That could be some of these, oddly enough, can be like opposite both. You can't sleep and you're low in energy during the day, regardless of if you slept well or not. So you could have a really good night of sleep, and then you could be deficient during the day. I found this myself personally. So I'll take some during the day to give me energy. Why? Because magnesium is needed to make ATP, or energy in its raw form, and you can't make it without oxygen, magnesium, and copper. So, headaches, migraines. Again, if you're having a migraine, the better you get at this, you can start to, I'm not going to say self-diagnose, but you can help yourself and help other people, by a good guess that's really safe, right? And so, because there's a big difference between minerals that are just, natural elements the body has that are often water soluble, and if you take too much, your body will just excrete them typically. And, and then like, actual drugs. I just want to make that really clear, because I am constantly reminded there's a lot of people out there that really aren't incredibly sure the difference between some really effective supplements and drugs. So that just for everyone, I want to make sure that's stated and really clear. So these are some of the safest supplements, although they're incredibly effective. I believe they're in this category of minerals the most effective on the market. They're also incredibly safe. And so, like in the case of Kelly's, recovery, she was able to get back into the gym and stay in the gym and then get in better shape at 54 than she was at 45 or 40. So, really interesting. So sleep, irritability, we saw a great reduction, something like 60% reduction in anxiousness, and something like 20% reduction in anger or tendency towards anger in the clinical trial that we did on this product. And so just moving on a bit, I'll let you guys take this in. A lot to be said here. So energy production, really every aspect of the human body functions on making energy, right? So to sort of sum this up, I'll give you guys a nice analogy. So to be able to have a happy body, you really need a happy cell, right? So the question becomes, how do you have a happy cell? And the answer really is the cells need to do two things. One, it needs to make energy really easily. And then two, it needs to be able to take out the trash, so to speak, really easily, which is to detox. That's what we call it. Now, I say take out the trash because a lot of people say the word detox and I'm going to do a detox, and they don't really fully understand what they're saying and what's happening at cell level. But the body needs to get rid of excess waste, right? So when you do that, you don't have the headaches and all these other symptoms that we call problems that are really just a sign, right, that something's wrong. So I often say, I just want to add this in briefly, that your alarm bells are your friends. I have a ache or a pain. That's a good warning sign, because it's not a heart attack. It's not something that could be, life threatening yet. But if you don't listen to the headache, it becomes a migraine. You don't just go day one to a migraine. No one does. No one does, right? So when you understand that, you start to realize, okay, I need to really dial this in. These are a couple quotes or a couple of testimonials. I'll run through this really quick. But there's a lot of people out there, like my friend Natalie. Tell you a brief story. We were out in Maui. I met Natalie Jill. She's got over 1 million people online that follow her for fitness. And she was actually in bed, she told me. This is public info. I can share all of it. She said, for about 11 and a half hours a night. So she would go to bed at 8:30, and she would be in bed until 7:30 or so, or 8 the next morning. And it was because she wasn't getting deep sleep, and her body was hungry for it, right? And which is the same way that if you have a tendency to binge on ice cream or calories, junk food in the evening, it's because your body didn't get enough calories during the day. When you eat, and I'm sure a lot of you are understanding this as you're working with the fitness doctor, when you eat a good diet during the day, you don't have cravings late in the evening. You just don't. It doesn't happen. And when you have enough protein, you have enough everything else, your body is going to have stable blood sugar. And it's going to have stable blood sugar in part because you have the right elements in place to balance that blood sugar. But with Natalie, we're able to take her, believe it or not, this is still crazy, but we still have her Oura Ring snapshots. In 5 nights, she went from 16 minutes of deep sleep to 1 hour and 51 minutes, which is incredible. For anyone to be around 2 hours of deep sleep is to have a whole new life. I mean, if you can get over 90 minutes of deep sleep, you're doing great. And I will say, too, if you're at 90 minutes or less, you will tend to underperform for your entire life. So it is I believe it's the biggest thing. It's the biggest North Star that I look for in my own health and when I'm looking to support other people. We did a clinical trial with Oura Ring, actually. And it's something that I look at. I don't spend much time on it. P.S. I also look at my ring in the evening, not in the morning, because if I feel good and I look at my ring and it tells me, oh, you didn't sleep well, guess what that does, right? But if I look at it in the evening, I still have time to make the preparations. My workday is done. And then I go, all right, I'm going to go to bed earlier. Now, if I made that decision in the morning, I might have forgot about it, right? So I never hear anyone talk about that. So I just want to mention that as a nice bonus for you. Now, something else that you might know, both men and women have low testosterone, really around 25 these days. I know this says 30s, but that's conservative. And so I was in the sauna with one of my nutritionists, one of the fittest, most dialed in women out there. This was several years ago. And somewhere along the way, she told me that she was doing testosterone cream twice a day on her in her arm. And I said, that's and what she said, I know it's not addressing a root cause problem here. What do you think we can do? And she had just started working for me. I was like, well, honestly, all the minerals are going to help you naturally produce hormones, and you're going to produce the right amounts of testosterone. So, show of hands, as you're watching this, right? How many people here I'm wondering, would understand that women have more, this is a quiz, do women have more or less testosterone than estrogen? And most people would say, what? That women have more estrogen. But it turns out even women, I know we all know men have a lot more testosterone than women. That's pretty obvious. But women also have a lot more testosterone than they have estrogen. And turns out between 10 and 35 times more. So, and that's for healthy, balanced women. So we are, in that way, a lot more similar than I think a lot of us once thought hormonally, even though, of course, women have, this, 4-phase cycle every month. And so to support that cycle, whether you're a woman or a man watching this at any stage, whether you're having a period regularly if you're a woman, or you're postmenopausal, or you're somewhere in between. So just understand that one of the levers that you may be able to pull in your health is supporting your testosterone through a mineral standpoint, but also through herbs that are clinically shown and studied. So we actually made a product there too. I don't want to spend too much time. Again, it's not like a presentation for sales. This is really just to help you guys understand, hey, be looking out for these things. But I'd be remiss to tell you, hey, we actually did a clinical trial. I think this is the best product on the market. So it is called Upgraded Tea if you're like dying to know that, and that's your like whole thing that might move your health forward, and help you also with everything that you're learning at the fitness doctor. I want you to know that. So men and women, you can take that. You can see more info on our website if you need to. Not going to spend too much time on this, but yeah, I mean, testosterone does a lot of things, including keeping us young, right? Because one of the things that is very connected to youthfulness for women and men is what? Sex drive, which comes from where? You got it. Exactly. Testosterone. Ability to be able to recover from injuries. Ability to build muscle mass, which is something we talked about. And of course, memory. You guys know this, right? Memory and testosterone. If your testosterone's low, how much mental clarity do you think you're having? Not much, right? So, all right. And then one of the things we want to cover here is minerals for blood sugar. These are some signs. I'll let you just read through this. Some signs that you have chromium deficiency, which is one of the key minerals we're looking at. If your chromium is off, you will crave things. If your zinc is off, you will crave things. There's trace minerals as well. It's something that we put in something called Upgrade Metabolism. I don't know if we have a slide on that or not, but that includes actually all of these, because your metabolism goes up when your minerals that balance your blood sugar are adequate, right? Makes sense. Because then your body's not struggling, hey, what do I do? I've got this blood sugar, I've got this sugar, and I've got this insulin, and do I deploy the insulin now? And, it becomes a pretty inflammatory process if your body can't do that easily, right? So we want to support the body. This is really all about, if you're noticing what I'm really saying, I'm talking about balancing, I'm talking about testing, I'm talking about balancing, I'm talking about absorption, and I'm talking about knowing sort of the personality of all these minerals. And interestingly enough, the book that I'm just about done with, it's in the edit stage right now, is about how nutrition becomes personality. And so if you know people, they're struggling with not only focus issues, but things like bipolar, where they're this way and then they're this way, they're manic, etc. So many different things. Turns out we can both test for and begin to correct those things over time. And so another thing that you look for is when we're talking about, because we had muscle health come up as one of the things out there. Of course, this is going to help blood sugar to some extent too, because it's one of the key minerals that your body needs for adrenal health, but also, for any muscle contraction, we actually need potassium. Unfortunately, a lot of people have been taught the wrong thing when it comes to muscle cramps. They think that's potassium. In almost every case, it's magnesium. In almost every case, which is why I travel with our upgraded magnesium, our liquid, because I'll normally get leg cramps on a long flight, all the radiation, dehydration, things like that. And it just, in a couple minutes, the cramps are gone. So, because otherwise, it wakes you up, you get those foot cramps. I'm sure you've all had them at different times. Through sports, you may, if you've played sports or just woken up in bed sometimes and you've been hot and sweating and dehydrated, you might have had a cramp that just like shook you to your core, that if you would have had plenty of magnesium in your system, wouldn't have happened. And interestingly enough, a fun fact, heart attacks can be prevented by really two things, mainly magnesium, because the heart is a muscle, it needs to relax. And an attack or a stroke is when the body can't relax. And so, yes, there could be clogged arteries, which you could take like a proteolytic enzyme and begin to dissolve those things. And yes, you could have too much iron in the body, and that's common too. But again, if the heart can relax fully, then that muscle can do, what it needs to do. And the cells in the heart, again, at a cellular level, can make energy and they can take out the trash. So, moving on to memory minerals: iodine, phosphorus, manganese, molybdenum, often called that Molly B, and boron. These are all linked to intelligence in one way or another. And so, like, iodine is a key mineral for thyroid function. Manganese, also thyroid, and helps you with detoxing, one of your key detox pathways. Molybdenum, also very, very important for mental function. So these are some you'll definitely want to scribble down if you're looking. I put these in a product called Upgraded Memory. Also, that's helpful. And then, going gray, we touched on this earlier. There's really two minerals that are going to not only support you in not going gray as fast or begin to reverse that, but also, again, remember, outwardly is just a sign of health and aging and how we're doing. So yes, we're all going down this path of aging, and also we can do that very quickly and poorly, and we can also, like, make that transition smoothly and with as much energy as possible. So it's really a sign of low energy if you've gone gray very early in life. Your body's burning those stores, right? It's just burning faster than you can put more in the stove, so to speak. So yeah, manganese. Don't forget about manganese as well. Very important. We have articles too, guys. If you just search like gray, Grey, or Gray, people spell it both ways, on our upgradedformulas.com. You can find some cool articles there that are pretty unique. And then here, we actually already talked about this from at least the standpoint of like what's better for mineral deficiencies and why you want to look at tissue and what to do, as far as how to interpret it. Obviously find a consultation with someone that understands this. Also, and yes, we offer those consultations, and you can set that up through the fitness doctor as well. The thing that I will just tell everyone is there's a lot of people out there in the health profession. I would say especially MDs that weren't taught this in medical school, that have a tendency to go, oh, and they'll say something derogatory about like 1970s hair testing. And it's like, just like a lot of things, just like cars and airplanes, we've come a long way in all types of testing, and including hair. So they might cite something from long ago, and I always say, just ask when someone gives you something negative that you're thinking about pursuing. If they ever do, just go, so what's been your direct experience with that? Like, find some polite way to ask that question. And you'll probably find that, like, no, they've never really recommended it. No, they've never studied it. No, they didn't spend like 15 years learning about it like I have. And also, if someone can sit in a room and just be on a phone call with you and not even see you in person, and give you 8 or 10 things that are accurate, like, hey, Barton, I imagine you're not remembering your dreams, are you, mate? And it's like, how do you know that? And then proceed to do that in the same way our nutritionists do that today. You can learn a heck of a lot by yourself from that. And if they're able to do that, clearly there's accuracy there. So what I love about this test is that it can just be added on. If any of you are practitioners, it's something you can also bring into your practice. It's just another lens. But whether it's you, it's most of you are just looking, hey, how do I improve my health or someone in my family's health that needs it? And so we always talk about metabolism too. This is a key thing, because when you get your metabolism going better and better, the better it is. It's kind of like sales for a business. It sort of fixes a lot of things, more sales, right? And so, with a higher metabolism, your body's able to clean itself out better. It's able to heal better. You're going to sleep better. You're going to have more energy. So you'll be able to do things, and you'll be, there's a real clear correlation between high levels of energy and high levels of mood, low levels of energy and low levels of mood, right? So just briefly, of course, we're looking at deficiencies, heavy metals. We're looking at your adrenals and thyroid. We're looking at your immune system. And in fact, like your susceptibility to a virus or a cold is something we can see through your ratio very clearly. And it doesn't mean that we can prevent everything, but we can, there's some people that went through COVID, for example, and they barely got sick. And then other people literally died or almost died. And that's completely immunity, and that was irrespective of age. We had people like LeBron's son that, early 20s, I believe. And then we had people that are in their 80s, 90s. And so it's not an age thing. It really isn't. It's a nutrient thing. And it's a balance of all these levels. So here are a couple of recipes that we've put out, some things that I personally like to eat. We'll send this out to you. Robbie and team will have this out to you as a little bonus gift of some things that I personally find are good, diet choices, depending on, even if you're vegetarian, some options here.
And I'm sure you've optimized these recipes for mineral.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yeah, because one thing that we find often is almost everyone is low in potassium. And so, as well as, magnesium. So things like sweet potatoes and squash, those are going to have a lot of really good quality potassium. And so, as long as you're taking the skin off of it, you're going to get rid of a lot of lectins. And, yeah, I think that these are some good choices. And of course, if you want to add protein, add the protein of your choice, right? So whether you're making this choice at a restaurant or at home, I would say just make sure that you're not using any seed oils. And what are seed oils? You can just do a quick search on those, but stick to things that have a good smoke point, like avocado oil, coconut oil, even butter or ghee is really, really good. If you're concerned about lactose, and go the ghee route. And so yeah, these are a couple good options for plenty of potassium and good nutrients. Cinnamon's going to balance your blood sugar, and so I put cinnamon in my coffee. I'll drink black coffee often, and I'll put some ghee in it and blend it, and then I'll top it with some cinnamon just to help that blood sugar be balanced and steady, and therefore your focus, will mirror your blood sugar often. So if you have very, very good focus, you can point backwards and go, oh, but my blood sugar was very level at that time, and you can check and see that it was. All right, guys. Well, that's what I have for you today. It's an absolute pleasure being able to share some time with you, and I hope all of this was not only helpful but life-changing. I feel like the promise I often make is that if you'll watch one of these presentations, this is information that's so foundational that you really will use it for the rest, like each day for the rest of your life. I feel like it's that foundational and that important. So thank you for having me, and yeah, just want to say thank you to the whole Fitness Doctor team, and I wish you all just the best of health. If we can ever help, please let us know. Thank you.
Barton, thank you so much for what you just shared, the wealth of wisdom that you just shared with us. And of course, it's a lot of information. I know for you as an audience member, there's many details and such. Now, I know I'm pretty good at getting things done with other people. And so we actually took a pause from this session, and we're coming back to create the closing. And I've got Barton to provide the biggest discount he's ever done with anyone ever, okay, which is 30% across the board. So if you want to get the hair analysis done and then have a consultation, so the consultation is included with the hair analysis, correct?
Right. Yeah. There's a package. It's normally, it's a $500 value. It's normally $297 on the site, and so it'll be like $199, something like that, with 30% off, and you'll get unlike so many tests out there, you actually get a consultation with that. So that's really awesome. Yeah.
Amazing. So you'll get the discount of 30% on the hair analysis plus a full private consultation to look at what are your deficiencies. And then, of course, the choice if you want to purchase any supplements from Upgraded, which, by the way, I use myself. In fact, there's things that I saw with Barton presenting today that I'm like, oh, I need to actually experiment with some of those other things as well. And yeah, so I take the magnesium myself at night. I take the manganese, and I occasionally, as an athlete, have some cramping issues, but I have not had that since I started taking Upgraded Charge. So,
awesome.
so yeah, so you have the 30% discount, no pressure. This was not intended to be a sales pitch. In fact, I actually paused the meeting and told Barton, like, hey, what's the best discount that you can do for our people? Because I want to not only just educate them, but provide them a discount. So no pressure. But the offer's there. We'll provide you the link along with the discount code in the email. And lots of love to you. Barton, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure. Happy to do a round two sometime if it's helpful. And thank you, each of you, for watching this, for listening, and please share it with someone you care about.
And I think one great thing in closing, if you have interest in asking Barton questions or lots of questions from what you just watched, let us know, and we could look at doing a live Q&A session. Like we'll have a session that's just focused on Q&A. We'll bring Barton there, and we'll just have a live Q&A, especially for our VIPs. So for you that would like to participate in that, just let us know, and we'll set up a live Q&A session. Lots
Yeah,
of love. Make it a
thank
wonderful.
you. That's great. Thanks, guys.